Welcome to the Parent Survival Kit podcast from Surviving to Thriving in Your Household. My name is Sonia Schwalen, and next to me, as always, is my beautiful bride, Dr. Sonia Schwalen, pediatric expert psychologist, nationally certified school psychologist, and also eating disorder specialist and expert. All right.
Thank you.
We have a really exciting podcast today. We have a guest with us that we're very excited about. One of our very own from NextSTEPS Worldwide, Liesl Sumter. She is a registered dietitian. And today we're going to be talking about eating habits and really just what is healthy eating? What does that look like? I'm going to ask a bunch of questions that I have questions about, and hopefully you guys can give me some answers. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
Good.
I'm on board.
All right. So when it comes to eating, there's a lot of things out there. There's all these fad diets. There's, we've got picky eating. My kids only eat this and that I hear a lot from other parents. There's just all kinds of things that surround food, right? I mean, the first thing that we do when we wake up in the morning is we think about breakfast, right? One of the biggest questions of the day is, what's for dinner? Especially when you have kids. So when we have eating habits that may not be as healthy as we want as a parent, I always say, you know what, with anything in any arena, let's look to the top up, right? So as parents, we are the leaders of the family. What are we doing, or what can we be doing better to really help facilitate, I guess, better eating habits and structure with our family?
All right. Liesl, what do you think?
Well, I think when we talk about healthy eating, if we're going to know what's outside of that, like what is unhealthy eating and at what point do we get concerned about an eating disorder, we need to know what is normal eating, what is healthy eating, and not just from a cultural standpoint, because we have so many influences that, talk about the diet fads, the nutrition myths. And so how are we supposed to know what's off if we don't know what real structure and healthy eating patterns look like in the first place? And I think it's good for parents to acknowledge that all of us have our own unique experiences and influences with food and eating, things we've grown up around, things that we hear every day with friends and coworkers and family, and then from the media and all those sources. So it's going to be natural that all of us has formed some of our own thoughts around food, thoughts around what looks normal. However, if those aren't truly on track with what our body needs, that's where we see disordered eating patterns come in. So with all of that, what I'm getting at is we need to know what healthy looks like in the first place in order to identify what's off.
That makes perfect sense. So this is going to be a two-part series. So I really want to focus more on what we feel, as you mentioned, like, how did we grow up? What are our healthy eating patterns? What are we seeing as adults and whatnot? So let's look at the adults and the parents. When I growing up, I felt that if I ate spinach, I was going to be big and strong like Popeye because I grew up with Popeye. And then also growing up and spending some time in the South, we definitely had our own different, foods and whatnot. We had, my grandmother would make collard greens all the time. And, you have to eat your collard greens. You have to eat these things. And of course, I looked at that as a kid, like, there's no way I'm putting that in my mouth, right? Let's talk about healthy food. So what is healthy food?
Ooh, that's
Well, can I jump in real quick, just because what Liesl said? I want to really drive that home. So, there's a culture all around us, especially here in the United States, of diet culture, thin ideal, different mentality of what you should be eating. Eat this, not that. That kind of stuff it's all out there, and it's easily accessible at our fingertips. We can look that stuff up on Google, MyFitnessPal, social media posts. It's everywhere, right? I even heard today on those Food Network shows that the competitions, like the judges are looking to see if gluten is an ingredient and wanting gluten-free options and things like that. And for the most part, most people don't even know what gluten is, right? And so there's all this stuff out there about what you should do and shouldn't do. And the reason we have a registered dietitian on the show today is because we want to bring it back to basic science, okay? Liesl and other people like registered dietitians, they go to school for this kind of thing, right? They've studied this kind of thing. There's actually a science behind nutrition, right? right?
Oh, yeah.
Melissa loves to say that. And that's what's missing when we go to the pop culture as our source for what we should or shouldn't be doing, okay? So I just really wanted to throw that out there because I think today you're going to provide that perspective as nutrition is a true science, and there's actually a lot of logic and research behind what truly is healthy and not healthy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is evidence-based nutrition science. I think what people will be astonished to hear is that the evidence-based nutrition science a lot of times seems so simple and foundational when you hear a registered dietitian tell you, yes, eat 3 meals a day. It's really not that much more complicated, but there is a lot of backing to the benefits of just the most simple foundational parts of our structured eating.
Okay. All right. So what other, nuggets of information can you throw out there? Because, we say this a lot. I think we've said it on this podcast. I've said it on the Red Clinic podcast. It's just back to the basics, right? We take out all the fluff because there's so much misinformation out there. And if we get back to the basics, that's really our foundation for knowing how to gauge if something's not right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as a parent, and I used to be an athlete as well, and I still coach. I want to know, I want to know what I can do to eat better as a parent, for energy, for lots of different reasons. There's so much out there, as you mentioned. It's kind of funny. It reminds me of the politics. You can this is it. Nope, this is not it. We can debate all day long. There's all these different diets out there, all these myths as well of what works. You said something about fad diets earlier, and I remember back in the day growing up, there was a soda called Tab, and if you drank that, it was the coolest thing ever, right? You were hip, you were a pop culture, star and all these things, and you would never gain weight drinking Tab. So
I had no idea.
Never heard of it.
It's probably a little bit before your time. But. All right, so back to the basics. As parents, what can we do for ourselves first and foremost?
Yeah, I actually want Liesl to tell us what are some of those basics.
So when I go back to the basics with people, and this is something I do when working with clients, no matter their age, their background, how long I've been seeing them, we start with the foundational structure of eating. And this literally means I want people to eat 3 meals a day and 2 to 3 snacks, depending on their basic needs. And it's that simple. It doesn't need to be complicated with things like intermittent fasting or meal skipping, but there's actually a lot of scientific backing to feeding your body multiple times a day, 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks. And the science behind that means that your metabolism can be in a healthy spot. We know that even skipping meals or prolonged fasting leads to a slowed metabolism, and that can interfere with lots of different body processes. So when I talk to people about the need to eat 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks, it sounds so simple, but there's a lot of nutrition science behind that. And then when we're talking about family dynamics and the parent's needs as well as the child's needs, they all need to be eating 3 meals a day. And there's a lot of benefit to what that can cultivate in a family, sharing meals together, making sure that your kids have enough energy to learn at school and play, all of those things. 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks.
Yep.
Okay.
And the mental health benefits for that are just astronomical as well. We know that kids, when they sit down to a meal at least once a day with their family, and dinner is usually the one that where families can make that happen, the benefits are just through the roof in terms of a better sense of self-efficacy, self-esteem, a feeling of security. The relationships in the family are improved. The parent-child bond is stronger. Kids can rely on that consistency, and that helps them feel calmer and more at ease. Parents feel better when they're fueled, right? So it's very easy to feel hangry or irritated, right, when you're not getting enough nutrition. And I'm not trying to be the dietitian over here, but I do treat eating disorders, so I can talk a little bit about this. And so if parents are taking care of their bodies too, they're going to be better parents. I always hear, I'm sorry, I know you want to say something, but I always hear athletes especially, they'll say something like, yeah, I eat every 2 to 3 hours. And I eat smaller meals, but every 2 to 3 hours. And for a lot of people, that seems kind of insane, but I think that's exactly what you're saying. 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks. If you space it out on any given average day, that's about every 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's only so many hours in a day. And I'll tell people, if you've gone more than 3 or 4 hours, that should really be your time to check in with yourself, see if you've eaten, see when you need to eat next, because the science behind that is that's when blood sugar is going to start to drop again after a meal, and you need to eat again to maintain those blood sugar levels.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned just the family dynamics and whatnot, getting together as a family. If you even go biblically, it talks about breaking bread. Well, breaking bread, is biblical, and it's just coming together as a family, as a group, as a community in some senses, and it's like that feel good feeling, right, of just eating together. When I'm eating, I know that when I'm eating healthy is when I am eating 3 meals a day. I have my snacks. When I'm disciplined in my eating habits, I have a lot more energy. I'm not as hangry as often. I think you could agree, right? And it is important. So it's a discipline, though. Definitely we have busy lives. I mean, there's times that I wake up and, there's kids running around. There's things to do. I'm running late. Our 3-year-old didn't do the things that we needed him to do when he needed him to do them. So I'm going to skip breakfast because I have to do this, this, and this. And then all of a sudden, it's now lunchtime. I haven't eaten yet. And then when I do eat, I kind of actually crash even more just because I haven't eaten since the night before. So what are some things that we can do is there like certain foods or snacks? Because it's kind of funny too. So on the way to school with our 3-year-old yesterday, I listened to the radio. And I listen to this Christian radio station sometimes, and they have this husband and wife that are on air, and they're talking about this TikTok types of videos. And one of the videos that went viral, which they were talking about, which was crazy, was
mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes, yes, absolutely. So you heard this too. So they were this TikTok video that went viral was about this lady says if you boil your potatoes for mashed potatoes instead of in water, in chicken broth, which I've done many a times. So this is not news to me, but just the talk about this is like there's so much, yummier and whatnot. And then the lady commented during this, just talking about these potatoes is that, yeah, that sounds so good, but oh my gosh, so many carbs. And they're like, oh yeah, that's so many carbs. So
well, hold on. And then I don't know if you heard the second part, but then she's like, we're in California, and in California, they puree cauliflower and they put it in the mashed potatoes to make it creamier and
healthier, right?
Don't mind the like hard raw pieces or whatever. There's like some gross joke about how they don't really actually taste very good or feel very good in terms of texture. And so there's all these ideas too about like how to make a food healthier and essentially mess with it, right? But anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But carbs, we have to watch out for our carbs. Too many carbs are bad, right?
And this is a hot topic. Dietitians love to answer these questions. Carbohydrates often get a bad reputation. Even potatoes get a bad reputation for no good reason.
Unless you're on the potato diet.
Oh, yes, unless you do the potato diet. Not a dietitian endorsed
couch potato diet,
by the way.
The couch potato diet.
Yeah.
So there's apparently this new fad diet where people just eat potatoes or something. I don't know.
Not dietitian endorsed. I'll just leave it there.
Not Red Clinic endorsed. Not eating disorder safe.
No. But carbohydrates.
What about meat and potatoes? Because that's really my playground is meat and potatoes.
That's what we're getting at is balance. Balance, adequacy, variety. Those are the 3 main points that I actually go to next with clients after that nutrition structure. You have your 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks. Now let's talk about what you're eating. Like you said, we want to see balance, adequacy, and variety, which means a balance of foods and food groups. That means carbohydrates and proteins and fats, fruits and vegetables, dairy products. The reason we have all those food groups out there is because each of them offers different nutrients to our bodies that our bodies need, including carbohydrates. Our body actually runs most efficiently off carbohydrate energy, and our brain only accepts energy from carbohydrates or glucose. And so when we don't have enough of that, we're going to see things like feeling like you have brain fog, less energy, tiredness, more irritability. And the answer is carbs. And so all of these diets out there, all of the nutrition fads that say cut carbs, eat low carbohydrate, that is not dietitian endorsed. And it makes sense if you feel a little run down when you're not eating enough carbohydrates.
Right.
That makes perfect sense. So, right now I'm actually trying to exercise more. I'm playing more tennis. So I used to be an athlete, and I'm trying to get back to my glory days as much as possible.
You going to drink Tab to get there?
I can't find it anywhere. I'm really upset. So I'm drinking clearly Canadian now.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding. Anyway, so I play tennis quite a bit, and I really want to start playing basketball again. But in tennis, I play singles. And so in a given singles tennis match, I'll burn anywhere from 1,200 to 1,600 calories, depending on how much my opponent makes me run around the court. Okay.
Per your Apple Watch, right?
Per my Apple Watch, right? Which probably isn't 100%, actually or correct, because it's going to slide up and down my wrist a little bit and whatnot as well. But nonetheless, on those days when I burn those extra calories, it shows that I need, through my MyFitnessPal that I also do, because I am trying to get all my nutrients in. It's not for calorie watching. It's really more for nutrients more than anything. It says I need something like 300 and almost 400 grams of carbs. And then it's something like 180 grams of protein. So does that sound pretty, again, this is just throwing some things out there at you, but does that sound pretty accurate, like having 300 and something grams of carbs and 180 something grams of protein when I'm going to burn, just say 2,500 calories that day overall?
That's a good question. And that is a perfect topic to ask a registered dietitian, because the way you calculate those things, calorie needs, protein needs, carbohydrates, fats, it's pretty complicated. And so even something like MyFitnessPal or a calculator you find on the internet is not going to be able to answer those questions as accurately as a registered dietitian. And at the heart of this, what I want parents to hear as well is that no amount of looking at the numbers is truly going to equate to a balanced diet. And I think that's where we see disordered eating patterns come in, is when we focus so much on the calorie content, the carbohydrate content. Am I getting in enough protein? And kids watch that. Kids see what their parents are doing. And so some of that hyper focus honestly has the opposite effect we want, when we just want a diet that is balanced and adequate and has variety. And when you are eating in tune with your body, in tune with when your body's getting hungry, when you're getting full, you're naturally going to get in the range of what your body needs. And so, to answer your question, I would say not really sure unless you talk to a registered dietitian about your personal needs.
I want to add to that. So personal needs, what she said. Our body, like you said, naturally will just kind of figure it out. But that's what people have lost sight of, right? If you think about something like MyFitnessPal, for an example, I feel like we're just dropping brand names. This is like a plug episode where we should get some sponsorship or something. But
I was going to say,
anyways,
we need a sponsorship, for sure.
MyFitnessPal, if you know anything about BMI, which Liesl knows a lot about, so she might talk on that here in a second, but it's marketed to pretty much anyone who has a cell phone and can download an app, right? And so the numbers and the calculations and all that, who knows what they based that on? And when you sit down with a dietitian and you get one-to-one service, they're going to take into consideration you as an individual. That's literally what Liesl just said a second ago. Because every body is different, right? Our needs are different. Your needs are not going to be the same as mine. My needs aren't even going to be the same as mine when I'm pregnant or not pregnant, or nursing or not nursing. Even that changes just depending on what life stage I'm in. A teenager's needs are going to be different than, an older individual who might have diabetes or something. So there's just so much to take into consideration that we can't let some app that's marketed to the mass determine what we need nutritionally.
Well, and I get that too. It's just, for me, it's kind of a guide. It does ask me my height, my weight, and all that. Doesn't know, and it does ask about your activity level. But it's there's 3 or 4 choices, very active, not so active, couch potato we talked about. So I do like what you said about kids and learning from our eating habits as adults, because that's really what we want to focus on more so as parents. We talk a lot about in the podcast, kids are learning things based on they're catching it, so it's caught, not taught, and they get this from us as parents as well. So let's talk about, you said, a colorful rainbow, eating from the rainbow. Which
she's
I love.
the dietitian.
I love that phrase.
Okay, good.
Dietitian approved.
But what I want to ask about is, let's talk about what are the food groups first and foremost.
Yeah. So we have carbohydrates, proteins, fats, dairy, and then fruits and vegetables.
Okay. So grains would be
carbohydrates.
Would be carbs.
Carbohydrates, yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is where that variety part comes in that I love to talk about, is that we really do need a variety from all those food groups to have all the nutrients.
But fruit has lots of sugar in it, though.
But it's natural sugar. Natural sugar in the form of fructose. So we have, sucrose is table sugar, fructose is natural sugar. The body...
But not the high fructose corn syrup. That's not acceptable.
That's actually the funny thing. It chemically is the same thing. Fructose in fruit, high fructose corn sugar. Our body processes that as glucose, which is a carbohydrate. And again, our brain's only source of energy. So at the end of the day, whether it's from fruit or high fructose corn syrup, it's still brain energy. The part I do want to touch on as the registered dietitian, I have to talk about nutrition, is we need to also consider all of the good vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, things like fiber that we do get from something like fruit. And why, I care about little kiddos getting enough fruit, I care about adults getting enough fruit and vegetables, is because, like you mentioned, Eat the Rainbow, those different colors are actually where different nutrients are being stored in the fruit, which is why a strawberry, which has a red color, has different nutrients than an orange, which is orange, or a banana. It's literally in the phytochemicals, which is the colored chemicals, where those antioxidants are stored. So that's why a phrase like Eat the Rainbow really is such a good reminder to have variety.
All right. So when I'm playing tennis, I have started here recently taking a banana with me so that in the middle of my match, I'll just take a couple bites here and there as we exchange sides and whatnot. And it gives me, it gives me more energy and pretty quickly. So what does a banana do that allows me to have this energy? And, does that also work during like the work day as a parent, or even on the weekend when we have the kids at home nonstop all day, every day? What's in a banana that helps me with this stuff? It's just dropping me bananas to know.
So bananas are mostly carbohydrates, but that's totally okay and part of what our body needs. That's why you feel the energy so soon, is because your body can take that and use it as energy, whether for playing sports, chasing your kids around, learning something, communicating. The body's going to use that energy really quickly and effectively.
Okay. Well, and I hear a lot, just being around a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am, I hear about mood, food, mind, gut. So how does food, or the lack of food, and maybe certain food groups from what I'm hearing, and different colors, how does food or the lack of affect my mood? Because I know the hangry, eat a Snickers bar, right? If I'm feeling hangry, eat a Snickers.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's Snickers or a banana or a slice of pizza. At the end of the day, it comes down to food intake. So just eating and how that can affect our mood, if we're getting enough or not. And we know with lots of nutrition science and also the psychological side that if someone's brain isn't getting enough energy from food, that's going to affect mood and our ability to regulate our emotions. That's where we have concerns about disordered eating and the effects it has on the brain. And so there's lots of those, brain gut connections. But let's not also forget that not eating enough can affect all different organ systems. So your muscles, your heart, your digestive system, and the way all those things interact is going to also impact our mental health.
Absolutely. And you keep saying that glucose is the only source of nutrition that the brain will accept. I always tell parents, you know, after your child has had like a very long study session, do they kind of look up and they're a bit famished? You know, they come to you and they're like, I'm just really hungry right now, and all I've done is sit here and study. It's because the brain is truly burning energy. And it's not just our brain that does that. It's all organs in our body and our entire body. You know, I like to break down. I know enough to be dangerous, right? Because I have to have these conversations with clients in therapy sessions. Our body needs nutrition in general. I love that you said at the end of the day, if it's a slice of pizza or a Snickers bar or a banana, it doesn't really matter. Because one thing that we also like to help people and parents understand is that, you know, all food is a source of nutrition. We can't really label things as good or bad or different. The key is that variety, and letting your kids see you eat a variety is so important. You said like it's caught, not taught. You know, they need to see that being modeled, is that we're not afraid of a Snickers bar, but we're happy to eat an apple over a Snickers bar or whatever. We're not afraid of any food. You know, the food is not the enemy. It's, you know, and that's,
it's the habits.
I think what diet culture actually promotes is making food the enemy, right? And if we don't have the willpower to not eat the Snickers bar, then that means we're bad. And then we start talking about like, that's too much sugar and I don't want you to have more, you know, soda or juice. I mean, the things that come out of parents' mouths to their children, the stuff they're teaching their kids, it's all coming from something that they've heard or read, or, you know, their friend is following some diet or whatever. And so, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but there's just, we could go on forever and ever.
Well, but I can eat the Snickers bar. I just got to work out an extra 20 minutes.
There you go. Right. And that's not what we're trying to say.
No, we want to be careful about the language we're using around food and not using terms like good or bad, healthy, unhealthy, relating it to body image or weight. Because, and I like to tell people, food has the nourishing component. We need to get nutrients from food. But we can't forget that food also offers an emotional and satisfactory component that we need for life enjoyment and mental health, and that is a good gift that we have to have that satisfaction from food. And that's why we use the term all foods fit, meaning that all foods serve a purpose in our lives and in our diet, and some are going to be really nutrient-rich foods, like the banana. Others are going to serve more of that satisfying purpose, like a Snickers bar, and you're still going to get good carbohydrate energy from the Snickers, just like you would the banana.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that makes me feel better about my favorite midnight snack. What is it, honey?
Snickers.
No, come on. What is my favorite midnight snack?
Chocolate-covered almonds. I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. My favorite thing to eat at the
chocolate chip cookies, or macadamia white chocolate cookies and milk.
And a big glass of milk. I love a nice, just moist cookie. It doesn't have to be white macadamia nut. I'm a cookie monster. So cookies and milk. Well, it's kind of funny because, and we'll close up here in just a moment, but when I was watching some of the pregame stuff at the Super Bowl, okay, so and kids hear all this stuff too. So I was actually kind of excited to hear this from Tom Brady, because Tom Brady is the GOAT, right? And he's now been in 10 Super Bowls with 7 championships. Unbelievable. I don't like the Patriots. Oh, wait, he's on the Buccaneers now. Just kidding. But they interviewed him about how is he in his 40s and still playing at the level he's playing at. And he talks a lot. He talked a little bit about diet, and it was really kind of geared towards diet and whatnot. But he did talk about, you know, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And they said, well, do you ever eat pizza? He's like, well, I mean, actually, yeah, I do. I mean, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I think I had a slice or two of pizza. You know, I don't indulge in those types of things. Is basically what he alluded to. But I do enjoy some of these other foods at certain times. But obviously, he's very disciplined in his diet. But fruits and vegetables are really key. The fastest man in the world, they interviewed him about what his diet was, and he would never eat fruit in the morning. He wasn't allowed to eat fruit until the lunchtime meal, and he could have as much as he wanted at that point in time, but all of his training was in the morning. So I don't know the science behind that or the reasoning behind that, but these are things that we hear. So
yeah. Well, and those are good examples of the messages we're getting from the media as a whole. And you take a couple examples like that of these elite athletes who have found what works for their bodies in order to perform at that level. We hear that and then translate that to, oh, wow, should I be eating that way? However, at the end of the day, because nutrition is so individualized, just because it works for one elite athlete doesn't mean we should all be doing it at home. So really, when it goes back to nutrition structure, balance, adequacy, variety. As a registered dietitian, I don't care whether someone eats fruit in the morning, in the evening, in the middle of the day. What's important is that they're eating fruit. And I don't care if they have pizza once a week or every 3 weeks. I want to know more about the why. Like why, what does that food bring to your life? And is it emotionally enhancing, or do you have some fear around it? And we need to talk about that and evaluate for any disordered eating. And so what I want to encourage people to do is focus back on the basics, back on those eating principles, foundations that really are nutrition science backed. If you are an elite athlete, talk to a sports registered dietitian who can give you individualized recommendations. But for those of us who are not elite athletes, I just want to encourage nutrition structure, 3 meals a day, balance, adequacy, variety, eat the rainbow, go back to those basics.
All right, cool. 3 questions real fast. Number 1, does eating or taking in protein first thing in the morning, does that help?
Not any more than taking in protein at other times of the day. The important thing is that you just have some.
Okay.
Your body doesn't know what time it is.
All right. Okay. So that's another question that I'll have to bring up another time because that's probably a long answer. All right. If we're 3 meals a day, should we be having food from all 5 food groups at each meal, or does that really matter from what you're saying?
Good question. It matters more that you get that variety of all 5 food groups throughout the day. I say a good rule of thumb is aim to have at least 2 to 3 of those food groups at a meal. So for example, at lunchtime, that could be carbohydrates, protein, and a vegetable in your complete meal. And then at a snack time, aim to have at least 2 of those food groups together. So dairy and fruit.
Okay. And should we have carbs at all 3 major meals?
Well, considering that our body needs carbohydrates more than any other nutrient, yeah, it's absolutely appropriate to have carbohydrates at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and at snack times.
All right. And there was one more question I was going to ask, and I forgot about it. So let's see. You know what? I can't think of it now. You blew my mind.
I think you need some blueberries.
You need some carbs, some brain energy.
I do, absolutely. All right, so we thank you for joining us today. So what we take away from today is that all foods are good, right?
Yes, all foods fit.
All foods fit. Okay. We have to take in our carbs no matter what.
Carbs are good.
Potatoes in, chicken broth, all day long. All right. And you want to finish with anything?
No, I think eat the rainbow. That's what I'll finish with.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to bring up to parents also is that those of us who have insurance, most of us do, or a lot of us do, registered dietitians actually, in most cases, are actually covered on your insurance plan. So it's kind of like having free access to a trainer, to a personal trainer. So if you have it, use it. It's always fun to go meet with a dietitian, learn more about what we can do for ourselves as that elite athlete. Next week, we're going to have part 2 of this episode where we're going to actually really dive more into kids and really what nutrition looks like, healthy eating habits, establishing those, and what to look for as far as any concerns we may have in our children. Remember, everything is caught, not taught. So watch what you do in front of your kids, how we say things, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much.